I think that is the biggest myth in entrepreneurship and leadership. And what I consider to be true, giving always creates more. If you give somebody a piece of steak off your plate, it's like, oh, no more steak for me, gave you the last piece. Physically, how this actually works is if I go up to you, Alex, and I am appreciative to you, and I treat you with gratitude, and I treat you with love, and I give you good vibes, and we have a good conversation, and we share in this, it's going to create more of that within you. And it's also going to create more of that.
Welcome to Builders, the podcast for impact-driven leaders who are done carrying it all and ready to scale with clarity, strategy, and freedom. I'm your host, Alex Snyder, strategic growth architect, creator of the CEO Recode, and second brain to leaders who are building brilliant companies without sacrificing every ounce of their time, energy, or sanity. Each episode, I sit down with bold leaders who've rebuilt, recalibrated, or redefined what it means to lead well and live well on their own terms. We talk messy pivots, leadership upgrades, tactical wins, and the deep personal work it takes to build a business that actually works for you. If you love the episode, make sure you follow, rate, and share it with another leader who's building big and wants to build smarter. And if you're listening and thinking, damn, I need someone in the guts of my business with me, let's talk. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth and define 2 to 3 high-impact shifts you can implement now to regain traction and build momentum. Now, let's dive in. Let's build it better. Welcome to Builders. Becket, thank you so much for being here today with me.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Super excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. You are a serial entrepreneur, the founder of Titan, which I love, is a network that builds, funds, and scales ventures committed to the pursuit of truth, expanding human potential and freedom, and creating a more relational world. So I can read titles all day, but I'll never do justice to who you are and what you're building. So could you give us in your own words?
Yeah. And that's a mouthful too. I still read that and say, wow, I could probably put this a bit more succinctly in what we're trying to do. But what we've been trying to create at Titan is essentially a network of people and leaders and companies that are creating a new type of infrastructure. And the infrastructure is through building businesses where we value relationships over transactions. So simply put, when you go out into the world and you have a great experience with, let's say it's a hotel or a restaurant, and somebody is treating you like a human being and they're providing a service to you and they say, hey, they talk to you like a human being, they give you really good service, you feel like you're building a relationship with that establishment, with that organization, and with that person. It's not just, okay, hey, we're going to make you come in, you're going to pay money, and then we're going to get you out of here. We don't like to be treated that way. And a lot of the time with all of this digital infrastructure we built and through the technology we've created, we've lost that human relationship. We've lost the value of relationships over transactions. So we focus on synthesizing technology and that concept through the people and companies that we work with.
I love that. Take me back a little bit around your leadership journey. This isn't your first business. So what has kind of shaped you along the way? What are the pivotal moments that have made you the leader you are today?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of them. The beginning of entrepreneurship journey started in like a very cliche way, I guess you could say. Like, oh, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And I sort of have. I don't know if I would have described myself that way when I was younger, but I think we were just talking about this. The first business venture that I really tried to pursue seriously was a food truck when I was 10. It was me and my best friend, shout out to Jack Sondercook. And we wanted to start a food truck when we were this age where we were cooking. There was this one dish called it was an innovation. And it was called cookies in milk instead of cookies and milk. And it was cookies in milk. And it was just blended up sort of like a smoothie, and it was cookies and milk. But it was just funny things. And since I was very young, I was trying to create businesses more from the ideas the ideas were exciting to me versus the making money standpoint. So as I got older, I think I only worked like 2 jobs, and one was for my boxing coach where he made me clean carpets. So it was like, oh wow, it's hard work. And we're doing commercial buildings. And then I worked a lifeguard job. And I liked both of those jobs because one was hard work and it was fun. And I felt like, oh, like as a 14-year-old, I'm working hard. And then lifeguarding is like the easiest thing ever. You sit in the sun at this beautiful establishment, and I got to hang out and talk with my friends and talk with pretty girls all the day, all the time. And I was just like, I really don't want to be doing this. I still don't want to do this. And I felt more pulled into this is when I was 16. Okay, how can I make money? And it started with me looking up how can I make money online. I found some course. It's a very famous video, actually, that a lot of people know from a guy named Ty Lopez. And it was here in my garage, and he sold my ass. He got me very, very, very quickly. Got me pulled into this 67 steps thing. And that was really the beginning of me starting to realize, okay, well, if I make the decision in order to change my life, then I can do that. And I really just went to YouTube University for the next 2 years of high school, learning to build websites and literally going up to local businesses and knocking on doors and cold calling people. And I was pretty bad at it. You don't get many. I was selling websites for $300 on Wix at the time, but it taught me two things about leadership there. One, if you decide to do something, you're going to be the person that's going to do it at the end of the day. It's not going to be a course. It's not going to be something that tells you everything. You can learn from others, but it's about you making it happen. And then number two was that things take a lot longer than you would think. And things take a lot longer when you don't have that experience or you don't have things to bounce the wall to bounce the ball off of to catch. So early leadership lessons, and then I'll kind of fast forward through the first business, built a company called Avail Consultants with business partner and a bunch of friends, learned a lot about marketing, a lot about how to create campaigns that were effective in today's landscape, cutting through the noise, how to get attention, how to convert people for local businesses. After that business, which ended at the beginning of 2020, I went in and kept doing consulting, which is for startup companies and politicians and a whole bunch of stuff, which is really where I think more of my formative thought work around how to be a good leader came. It was at the time of COVID, 2020. We're locked inside. It's a weird time. I had a pretty bad ending to that previous business, so I had to reset and go back home to live with my parents at the beginning of COVID, and ended up being a blessing because I got in this environment where I'd been exposed to all these principles and all these people about how to build a good business, how to be a good leader. And on the other side of it, a very spiritual part of my life was starting to root back again. And which kind of funny enough, I'm sure we'll talk about this more, is kind of where that's kind of what Titan is a merger of, those two parts of my life. And that 2020, 21 period of time was where I genuinely was like, okay, well, what is it that is attractive about all of these different companies and all of these different people that I've worked with and want to work with or consume content from or pay attention to them? And I started to think about good people was what was attractive to me. It wasn't the person who had the Lamborghini and was flexing it online and could talk the biggest game or pretended like they had the most money or was winning in every scenario or making it seem like they were winning every scenario. It was interactions with people like this guy I worked with named Evan Shai was a real leader. And the thing that I gleaned from him was just, okay, everybody has different skills, but treat everybody the same. You know, we've all heard that. We've heard these cliches, but it's become something that it's not always easy, but it's something I'm constantly trying to practice. And it was just, okay, doesn't matter if it's me, doesn't matter if it's an hourly employee who's hired for one day or if it's a waiter or it's not. It's like, okay, that right there was something that every single person in my life that I've met who's had that quality, I've respected. And it makes people feel welcome. It makes people see more of themselves. And there was a lot of lessons through that, but I think that's a big one that I take into account. Fast forwarding to more recent times, we worked with a client in 2023 or yeah, 2023, I think. No, it's 2025 right now. Sorry, I'm a year off. In 2024, we met a guy named Al Khaleen. And Al Khaleen runs a company called IMP, which is Integrative Mastery Programs. And Al is a mid 70s guy from Boulder, Colorado, who was once a hippie in his life, but also built a 9-figure mortgage company. And after that, decided to build IMP after getting fired from his job, or he likes to describe it as fired. I've heard mixed stories, but it fell apart for him. And he decided to focus on building a program that was all about helping people create lives of significance through letting their ego become a window where your soul can shine through and help other people do the same. It's like, oh, another word salad thing. And that was a very interesting experience because Al was the first person that I had ever worked with that told me your values and the vision that you have, the integrity that you have, and that is way more important than anything else. When before you have conversations with consultants and with coaches and with people, and they're like, yeah, make a vision, make your values, talk about your why. And then they shut the door once you pay them. They're like, how profitable are you? No, cut this person, do this. And it's like, whoa, okay, so that was all a lie. And IMP and their work was kind of the beginning point that gave us permission to focus on this merger, this synthesis of consciousness and business and technology. And as a leader, that's probably been the most important lesson I've learned ever. And it's you have to have values, and these are not random words on a wall that you look at every day just for the sake of looking at them. They're things that make up your core and your soul and allow you to navigate your life on, it kind of gives you a road, kind of gives you guardrails in your life, but it also gives you the confidence and the security to show up in a way where you can treat everybody as equals, to be excited and innovative and realize you could do things on your own. And it kind of makes up the core of what I see as good leadership and how I try to act in the world, what I try to create more of. Long answer to your question, but that's a bit of a snaking leadership journey.
There's so much in there. I mean, you really are an OG entrepreneur in the sense that, you never kind of like worked your way up through a company or spent any long-term developing a career before launching your own businesses, right? And
Yeah.
so much of what you talked about, it is reminiscent of some of the, most influential, and we'll talk about that, and famous people in entrepreneurship right now about like it really comes down to you versus you. It really is you who has to take the step and do the thing and hold yourself. And I really love that. And I think I'm a big believer that we do develop our leadership through emulation of people we admire and
Mm,
respect. I think it's just as important to be like, oh, I don't want to be like this thing or person that I experienced. And it sounds like you really took incredible advantage of all of that. You touched
definitely.
on it already, I think, with the kind of two jobs you did have, but I'm curious, how did you know you were meant to build businesses, and kind of why this business, why now? Either, Titan, or we could move a little bit more into Titan's newest channel. or
Yeah.
component of the business model?
I mean, how I knew for me, I feel like I got lucky on this is like, I can't not do this. I've tried. I had the opportunity to go to college. I had a lot of things in my favor to go the more commonly walked route of going and getting a job, moving career ladder. And maybe I'm a little bit crazy, which it seems like that. If you look at it from the beginning of the journey, I seem a lot crazier then than I do now. But I really, it just became clear to me that I needed to live a life of freedom. And that simply, I just define freedom as the ability to creatively express love. And in the pathways that I was walking in other directions, trying to go to college, trying to get jobs, trying to do that, I just constantly had these struggles with authority that wouldn't allow me to uh, express myself fully. It wasn't like I was very rebellious. It was more that I felt like most leaders didn't give respect to people as leaders later in my life did. So that was kind of what pushed me into it, and what kept me into it was just, I don't know, once I was in it, it was always the thing that just gets me excited. It's always the reason why I wake up and I enjoy my days and I feel motivated by it. And Titan became the Titan became the thing that I was focusing on because a bit of well, I'll take one step back there on the Titan side of this. In 2020, when I was going through that formative time in, I think it was April or May, I wrote a document called Titan and I labeled it Titan. And the document was about what's called the Conscious Entrepreneur's Toolkit. And the idea of this was to synthesize all of the podcasts, all of the information, all of the books, all of the skills into one thing that we could give to businesses and to entrepreneurs who are struggling during COVID. And it was this idea that there was going to be this network that we distribute and we grow. And I wrote it in 2020, probably thought about it for a month, and then got back to consulting makes money. This doesn't. And then I did that. And years went by where we were dancing around this, dancing around this, dancing around this, where we had built up this offer around helping leaders grow their online presence through flow-based content and through valuing leadership over instead of leaders, instead of influencers, was a big part of this. And that then got validated by IMP, kind of like I mentioned, where Al kind of poured into us, helped us clarify that, no, you may have to take a step back from the agency model of being able to sell and scale and figure out what form this actually takes. But that's it. And it wasn't like he said that directly. That's just what I took from this experience that we went through with him, this 2-day immersive, I don't know, workshop, whatever you want to call it. And very, very quickly, that became the focus. I mean, within probably 24 hours of these conversations, it was me pulling out that document again and looking at everything that had been built over the last 3.5 years and saying, okay, boom, we're going to be focused on this. Titan took the form of us focusing on our partnerships. So we go out and we find we go out and find companies that we invest into and try to acquire a part of their business to be partners with them to help their companies grow. And we've done that through a lot of communications. We also have a studio that we produce podcasts in. I'm actually sitting in my studio. We've got some shows that we do. And that brings us to now, which is what you mentioned, which was Titan Zero. Essentially, Zero was born through us wanting people at a larger scale to get access to the information, the systems, the understanding, the wisdom, the know-how that we've acquired through building these companies and also all of the years before that. So Zero is a experience and licensing and info product suite, essentially. And we're starting it in the format of a workshop, which is also in partnership with IMP. And the name of the workshop is the Amplified Impact Workshop. And it's about creating a synthesis between consciousness and technology. And essentially, what that means, very simply, is when you interact with the interface that so much of us take energy and time interacting with it, and whether it's social media or AI or Riverside or Zoom or Google Meets or messages, does this create more freedom for yourself in your life? And is it allowing you to create more impact that's authentic to you? And we look at this through a lot of different lenses, but it starts with clarifying your values and what your vision is, and making that applicable to your daily life, not just words on a page, but integrating it into what you do, specifically with the focus on how do we interact with technology. And a lot of this is for this first workshop is designed for entrepreneurs and creators, people who make their own opportunity. So we talk about it through the lens of amplifying impact, and that involves communication, building awareness. It involves flirting with people, as we say, getting a lot of eyes, reaching out to people, making friends, and it involves dating people, which is how do you show up when you've engaged somebody, when you've started a relationship with them? How do you show up in the best way through your business and through technology that is a good relationship, not a toxic relationship? And then there's getting into the commitment side of once somebody is committing to you, whether it's through a vote of money, whether it's a vote of time, vote of energy, what does that look like? How do you show up in that way? And how do you create a business and a technological interface that is a synthesis of what you want to create more of in the world and delivering it to people? And that's what that workshop is all about. And we'll do more of them, but that one starts at the beginning of September. We'll be doing a bit of a launch event on the 16th, starts on the 16th of August, and it'll be fun, but it's a new product. It's a new step in the direction of making all the things that we've created more accessible for people, instead of just having to essentially go through an acquisition process or an investment process and a very, very high stress, high energy thing.
Yeah, high risk, high reward, like high
Exactly.
effort. So I was going to ask you kind of how did you determine that there was a need for this or the product market fit, but it seems like what you're really taking is a larger, more, cumbersome, very high value opportunity or offer that you've been working on, and finding a way to make it more accessible, more palatable and manageable
Yeah.
for a broader audience, who are not maybe of the size or maturity or even just financially where your portfolio of current clients and partners are.
Yeah, I mean, and the need, that is one part of it. And the need is that a lot of people, entrepreneurs especially, feel like they have to choose between soul or scale. It's kind of like the conversation that I was saying before. People are going to tell you your vision's important, your why is important, your mission, but a lot of these gurus and people that'll sell you information, or agencies that will sell you growth, shut the door, and that is thrown out the window. That is a very, very, it's a huge mistake, because
Yeah.
you're building for transaction then. You're not building for something more than that. And
So would you
that's where
say
we see
this
the need.
is really for like impact driven leaders and companies
Yeah.
or entrepreneurs?
Impact, I guess so, yeah. I think
Yeah.
that most entrepreneurs are impact driven. Now, you get into a different question when you look at Silicon Valley, you look at the VC world, and you look at things that may just be, oh, this needs to be filled, and I'm a serial entrepreneur and get access to the resources and do this. But I still do believe that most of the infrastructure that will be built in the future will have to be impact driven, because there's so much leverage that's accessible to everybody. And through AI and through media, we can scale anything very, very quickly. And not just AI, code in general, but it's changed the game for what's going to stick long term.
I'm curious because, preparing and launching Zero is, a business within a business. So it's almost like launching a new business, and this is not your first rodeo. What has been the hardest part? What has been surprising for you as you get ready for this, launch of, a sub model of the business?
I would say the hardest part has been the part that's been the most difficult part that for me personally, not even that it's been that that difficult to do, it's just more of a personal thing that I've had to grow through. You might have even said these words on your podcast, but I heard it on somebody's podcast. It was either yours or somebody else's that put language around this. It's like claiming your space.
Mm.
That's been something that through this process, I've never really been, as a marketer, I've never been a marketing first entrepreneur, which might be sounding very strange. I've been product first, build something amazing, communicate it well, and do it very strategically. When with this, as I'm building this out, I'm looking at all of these other people in the info product space and who are selling you things about AI and selling you things about marketing in the world. And I'm just like, wow, we're going to be so lost in all of this noise if we don't make this something that is clear what it is, that it stands on its own, that we stand in this position and you can try to push us out of it. You can try to degrade it. You can try to prop it up, whatever you want. But that's been the most difficult part for me. And that's taken the form of putting a lot of language and a lot of structure around launching this to be able to sell it to more people at scale. And I just say sell it to more people because that's what we're doing. But the hope is that people get access to all of our free resources, get access to all of the people who are impacted by this and their content, and it grows beyond that.
I love that, though. That was a guest on a previous episode who said
Yeah, I think
that.
it was.
And shout out to Mar, episode 3, I think, of season 3. But I love what you said because it's almost like, well, whether you want to amplify us or argue against us or whatever, we need to give you a clear reference point from which to do that, right? Yeah, you can come and like climb with us, climb on us, push us up, try to knock us down, but like you need that reference point for any of that to happen, right?
100%.
Yeah, I love that.
And painting what that is without being worried about it being too perfect, and just you always can tweak it, you can always do stuff more, but being like, okay, well, I'm going to communicate it this way and I'm going to believe in it. And that also kind of catalyzes that work side where it's like, ooh, well, now at this point, something that I may have put 25 hours into or 40 hours into, I put 100 hours into just the first step of it. And it's kind of catalyzed this thing where it's like, oh, wow, like to do this, it's even more work. It's like a new level. It feels good. It's exciting.
Yeah. It is hard though, because, when you're a high performer and when you have a track record like you do, it's such this middle ground of like done is better than perfect, and realizing that I think I try to stay away from like true entrepreneur, but I'm going to use it in this case, take it with a grain of salt. When you're a true entrepreneur, like nothing is ever finished and you will forever be building the plane while flying it to some degree. Because if not, then you stagnate and become a more mature business, which is often very unsuitable to the very entrepreneurial personalities. That's why people often will sell and go start something else. Because it's like when we get too mature, too stable, too stagnant, it's not necessarily leveraging your skill set in the best way.
Yeah, comfortable with ambiguity is shout out to George Howard, one of our partners. But yeah, that's it. You're building the plane while you're flying it. You're continuously having to adjust what it is. And I think that takes a level of security to put that out in the world when you mass market something and or if you're somebody who's going to raise money, it doesn't really matter the scale that it is at. But when you do it, And as you kind of, I don't know, guess you can say get to different stages in business, the game you're playing has a wider ranging effect on people. More money, more impact, more attention, whatever you metrics you want to use around it, it makes it feel like, okay, wow, now I got to get it perfect this time. And it's that same trap, every single time. And as an entrepreneur, you just kind of learn to roll with it and how to
Yeah.
deal with it.
And I'll take the plain analogy one step further, right? If you wait till it's perfect, you'll never leave the hangar, you'll never fly, right? Like you will always make adjustments. And I cannot remember where I read this, but somebody was referencing the Wright brothers. They're like, the Wright brothers arguably built the worst aircraft ever, right? They built the first one that got off the ground, so it is the aircraft, but everyone since them has built a better version. But they're remembered, and they are the ones that created the industry. And so, like, if you're going out and doing something that hasn't been done before, you will be the worst because everyone will make it better, or you will make it better every iteration. And it's such a, like, I don't know how that, I would love to hear if that lands for you, but for me, I was like, that's actually really helpful.
Definitely. It very much lands. I mean, for the sake of being vulnerable and kind of speaking about the journey, that was a huge problem that me personally, I had having this perfectionist idea where in a veil, when I was even trying to communicate a proposal to somebody, we're sending so many contracts to people, these local businesses, and it would take me an hour to send a text message talking about the proposal. And that's just one example, but it's I had to learn that lesson that you're saying through watching myself get passed by people repeatedly.
Mhm.
I was like, or see something that I really wanted to do, and then like somewhere else in the world, somebody kind of created this. It was like, oh wow, like wow, my fear of failure over perfection is making me miss out in levels of freedom that I want to enjoy and expressing myself. So I think it's super important and it lands completely.
Yeah. And I think fear is so often misinterpreted as like danger because of our, prehistoric brains. But in this day and age, in relation to business, it just means that it's important to you, right? It means that you feel a vulnerability or a way or a risk. But like, again, somebody else will get there before you if you wait too long, or the opportunity will pass, right? Depending what you're working on.
Mhm.
That.
Definitely. I mean, seen it happen many times personally.
Same, same. I remember seeing certain things launch and being like, "Oh, hey, so and so, remember 3 years ago when we talked about that?" And we were like, "Yeah, maybe one day." And now
Yeah.
it's a fucking unicorn that is people can't are in line to fund. Yeah, wouldn't that have been great? Oh, did we have the skills? Yeah, we did. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it feels so bad to talk about that too, like
Of
I
course.
refrain from it. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be that guy when I'm talking with Trent. But I'm like, you remember when I said this like 2 years ago? Look. And he's like, oh, come on, I do remember, but action. What did you say to me the other day? You said, ideas are a dime a dozen and execution carries its weight in gold. And spot
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Because so many people probably had that idea, but that guy's the one who did it imperfectly to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. So take me back a little bit to you very eloquently talked about kind of how you became the leader that you are today and the people who have influenced you along the way. I'm curious whether there are myths that you unpacked along that journey or beliefs that you had to rewrite as you stepped into, growing your business, having larger teams, leading clients through difficult situations.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many of them. Sometimes it's hard to know where to start. I think one of the biggest myths about being a leader is that there's one type of leader. I think that everybody likes to paint their picture of that leader. And most of the time, it's the person who's prescribing this is what a leader is, paints a picture of, oh, that leader resonated most with me. And there's probably a lot of qualities that said person has that you want, but you're probably different from that person. And the way that you become a leader will be different, and the way you show up in the world is that. So I think that's a big myth. And I've taken the path of uh, through that to just kind of learn to love myself a little bit more. Also sounds super cliche, but like practice that through being happy when somebody doesn't understand me, or like acknowledging that, being grateful for it, being like, okay, well, before I may have been like, oh, like I wish they would just understand this part of me or understand this idea. And now I'm like, okay, well, interesting. How interesting is the reaction? It's more neutral. It's like, oh, how interesting. Just acknowledging it. And I think that's a huge myth. I think that if we find ourselves, if you find yourself overthinking something with a whole bunch of, if you find yourself overthinking what's the right thing to do, then the, and I don't really know any other way to say this, is like you're probably just running from something. That's another leadership thing. Like if you find yourself overthinking all these things and getting to the point where you feel anxious about this, then there's probably something glaring you in the face that you turned away from at some point. This is more of a life principle than business. But I had a dream. This is going to sound crazy. I know every time you start
You're
with, I had a
fine.
dream about something, but I really did. I had a dream in 2023, end of 2022. And I was going through a hard time in my life at this. In the dream, there was a kitten that formed when I told a lie. So I was talking and I was talking to nothing. And this little baby kitten formed in front of me when I told a lie. And it was just sitting there and it was meowing at me and meowing at me, meowing at me. And it's like, I don't know what it was saying to me. It's just like, shut up, like, shut the fuck up. Like, I don't want to think about you. Like, oh, you're annoying, this and that. It's like, oh, you deal with it. And then eventually I'm like, okay. And I turned around and started walking away from it. I kept walking and it kept meowing, kept meowing. And then in the time continuum of my dream, it's like, okay, it's now older cat. It's like getting older. It sounds a little bit more aggressive, like a house cat, not just a kitten anymore. And as I kept walking, I was walking faster, and then it sounded like a feral cat. And it was like getting more aggressive behind me. And so I start walking a little bit faster, and then it's all of a sudden a mountain lion. I'm jogging, and then I'm at a full sprint away, and there's this lion chasing me behind me. And eventually in the dream, I get to a wall and I have to stop and turn around. I turn around, and it turns out the whole time it was just the kitten that was my lie. And all I had to do was turn around and give love to it and learn how to love this thing that I felt ashamed of. And I feel like that's such an important part that doesn't have to be a lie, doesn't have to be, it can be whatever it is for you, but we often don't face the things that are what we feel ashamed of, and or we feel scared of, or we feel uh, unclear about. And that happens in business, that happens in life. And as a leader, I feel like that's like the most productive thing that you can do. It's extremely practical, although it does not sound that way. You turn around, you face the things, you confront it, you learn how to do it with love. I think it's a superpower.
I think that's so well said. I do think it's a superpower. Also, so much of our poor behavior comes from shame, right? Usually it's avoiding or whatever in life and in business. And so I always joke that entrepreneurship and leadership are the personal development courses none of us signed up for. And so much of my work over time has included those things you're talking about, right? The self-awareness, the like being willing to be misunderstood, being willing to be respected but not liked, knowing your values and your boundaries and being able to communicate those and uphold values with integrity and, for yourself, for the people around you, and, those are huge things. And those are, you know, I think a lot of the time we see this tiny percentage of entrepreneurs on magazine covers, but and they are outliers and they represent certain things, and we don't really understand the whole infrastructure behind them that makes them work and their personality work within a growing company. But if you look at the bell curve, the 99% of entrepreneurs that are very successful, they have figured out a lot of what you're talking about. They have figured out how to build relationships, how to be self-aware and emotionally regulated, and not allow the boogeyman, right? The cat, to lurk in the darkness and dictate their reactions to things. They understand how to respond instead of react. And I think those, I hear you. Yeah, they're life lessons, but I absolutely agree they're fundamentals to good leadership.
Yeah, 100%. And if I could give one more
Yeah.
lesson that I think is, or myth and lesson that I think is super important. And the myth is that when you give to people, you lose something. I think that is the biggest myth in entrepreneurship and leadership. And what I consider to be true in this is giving always creates more. So if you think about it like this, if you give somebody a piece of steak off your plate, you think that you cut it and it goes away. It's like, oh, no more steak for me. Gave you the last piece. Okay, well, physically, how this actually works is if I go up to you, Alex, and I am appreciative to you and I treat you with gratitude and I treat you with love and I give you good vibes and we have a good conversation and we share in this, it's going to create more of that within you. And it's also going to create more of that within me. And it's also going to create more of that on a different cosmic level that we don't really need to get into. But vice
Second
versa is
episode.
true. Yeah. Like on the other side of that's true. Where if you give negative energy to yourself, to others, if you talk negatively, if your language patterns are continuously reinforcing something that is stopping you from getting what you want, it will create more of that. And giving always creates more. And that is a hack in business. If you can take that example and apply it to, if I was to be treating my customers in the greatest way possible, what would make my customers, my clients' experience as amazing as possible? It's like, okay, well, if you're giving first, it will create more of that. And take that and run with it however you want. But I think it's a pillar of Titan. That's one of the things that we have as one of our business values.
I absolutely agree. And I'll relate it to a recent episode recording where we're talking about a particular industry, kind of like high-end retail, and how so often employees are treated so poorly, but they're expected to deliver an exceptional experience to customers. And it was just like, how in the world does that compute, that you expect people to go out and give this incredible experience, but you are making their lives at work just like a nightmare, right? Like, doesn't compute. And so sometimes I often will talk about, understanding what makes you the best version of you, so you can bring the best version of you to your work as a leader, because it flows from the top. Like, if you come in subpar all the time, we all have bad days, but like, or rough days. But if you come in subpar all the time and you think that's not passing on to your team members and therefore to whatever it is your business does, like, I have news for you.
Look around.
You
You'll
know?
see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, it's always, I would almost say it's like, it's the cart before the horse thing. People are like, oh, of
Hmm.
course that person's like, positive and whatever. They're so successful. I'm like, well, maybe they're so successful because they're positive and make choices based on, being the best version of themselves and helping other people be the best versions of themselves, right? You could frame that either way you want it.
Yeah. There's really no downside uh, to choosing whatever light is in your example in your
Yeah.
life. If
Would
you
you
choose
relate
to,
that to, I feel like abundance is a term that gets talked a lot
sure.
about these days. Is that the same concept?
Yeah. Yeah. Expansion, abundance. It's like You can operate from a place of lack, or you can operate from a place of infinite versus finite. There's all these terms that are thrown around, and it's like these super deep concepts breaking into humans, common human language. But yeah, abundance is super. I think it's a great way of describing looking around and seeing everything as an opportunity, everything as a gift versus everything as something that's going to threaten you or that you have to tense up for.
And programming. I mean, you laugh
Hmm.
when I say we're meaty computers that we just have to learn to program. But programming ourselves, right? Like, I love the types of things that you're talking about. And I'm also like a science girl. So I also love to be like, oh, manifesting is like programming your RAS, right? For what to filter. Your brain can't see everything we see, it can only see a tiny percent, but we set the filters for what comes through. And so, programming yourself to see the positives, to we have expressions like, oh, bad things come in three. Well, what if like incredible things came in three? So when one good thing's happened, now you're waiting for the next two. Like, those are real, right? And those are, yes, there are things beyond maybe our comprehension or things that are now being tapped into and understood, but there's also genuinely good old-fashioned psychology that will explain a lot of it. And so if you need something to base it on, you can go that route. If you're into getting more nebulous, absolutely go down the more, grand cosmic root of energies and how we're connected. And I think,
It,
you know,
and I think they're so intertwined. I mean, this is probably a little different than uh, conversations on your podcast previously, but the the connection between psychology and science and talking about cosmically things things the way the universe works and all the way down to how do cells function, what we're learning is it's really not functionally that different. And the form's really not that different either. There's a concept called as above, so below that was originally propagated through Hermetic wisdom. Well, that's
yeah,
become something that's talked about a lot. And the concept of it is what is above on a scale up is the same as below and vice versa. And I think it's very interesting. Like you can investigate through spirituality and all of this stuff, but the deeper and deeper you go into spirituality and into science, you get to a point where they intersect always.
yeah,
And it's
there's
because I
convergence.
mean, we all exist in the same exact thing. So it's very interesting. I think that spirituality, or well, I don't know, that's a weird way to describe it, but thinking deeply about things is a important part of discovery. And I think leaders often do that. They think deeply about things, they're curious, and there's science is a route for that, psychology is a route for that, spirituality is a route for that, and it'll take you deeper. So is math. So
Abstract thinking and the ability to hold ambiguity, 10 on 10 skills for growth, leadership, absolutely, right? And the ability to even put two things together, right? Innovation comes from abstract thinking and ambiguity, right? Like, what if? The ability to hold a what if is sometimes a surprisingly uncommon tendency these days, right? To accept that there isn't one answer and like roll with that. For me, like, I think that's fun, and I know you do as well. Um, but I think it's a key to unlocking new things, whether it's new ways, new ideas, new communication, all of that.
yeah. Well, you talk
So
to a lot
what?
of leaders, Alex. What do you see? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask you a question. Well, you talk to a lot of people on the podcast, but you also talk to a lot of people in your work and in your life, and a lot of them are leaders. Do you see a trend line of this? I don't know whatever you want to describe what we're talking about it as, but
Yeah.
like a synthesis of all things becoming more common in leaders.
Ooh, becoming more common. That's a really interesting one. I think what you talked about earlier about the understanding and recognition of different leadership styles is thankfully something that is more common, and people, I kind of am like, it's like build a bear, great leaders are built, not born, and there isn't one way. And command and control was a very prevalent dictum for what a leader was for a long time. And you can't really argue with why that was when you think about, like, I work in strategy. Where does strategy come from? War, right? What do we know about war? Command and control. Lives are at stake. There's no time to question. Like, like that. Okay. So I think now the understanding that even in, I know leaders who are ex-military and they don't lead in command and control ways. They understand that actually the way to get people to do things and do it well often includes other elements of leadership that are now more recognized and more talked about. And even just, what we're doing, the internet, like, information is available in a way that has never been before. So is, to a degree, visibility behind the scenes. It's curated to a degree, but we get to understand, the whole, like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And we used to tolerate that, like, I'm going to say, like, men in power, like, cheated on their wives. That was, like, just how it was. And now that's not considered a leader in integrity anymore. So I think there's a lot of things changing, but to come back to your specific question, different styles of leadership is definitely more talked about, more visible. And I think intentional leadership is something that you see more of. I will say, I talk to a lot of people, but as always, I'm aware there's a bias, right? Anyone who wants to collaborate with me, work with me, engage with me is already going to fit into a certain bubble, right? I mean, anyone who wants to talk to me more than once. Like, they're going to fit within a certain spectrum of leadership characteristics, right? You're not going to find somebody who is extremely traditional and conservative who is going to be really open probably to working with me. And so I'm aware that I am seeing by like a section of it. I do think the emergence of, as I said, that integrity, that authenticity, that relational communication, that those things, those softer intangibles that, in my opinion, are amplifiers for the tangible hard skills and structures. I think there is more recognition of that. And I think there is more willingness to invest in that, which I think can only be positive. And if I was to wrap that all up, I would just say, like, growth mindset is more visible and there's more awareness around what is growth mindset and how does it apply. I think entrepreneurially, it's probably always been more prevalent, but I think it's as important, and I am seeing it more in people coming up through more traditional leadership without necessarily entrepreneurship.
Very interesting. I could ask more questions, but I'll refrain.
Turn the table.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a podcaster too, it's in our nature.
It is. Well, since we were talking about, definitions of leadership and terms, I'd love to hear from you because, on Builders, we like to talk about success on your terms, right? You already talked about entrepreneurship as a way to build what you wanted, to have things that you just couldn't not do, right? Which I love. What does success on your terms, what does success mean to you? And has that changed over the years? You're a little earlier in your career than some of our other guests, but you've still been in the game for a while.
But yeah, it's changed a lot. I mean, like I said, when I started the first version of what is now Titan, I wanted to make money. Like, I looked up how to make money online. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get rich. And I still want to get more rich and make more money, but it's not for money's sake. Yeah, success has changed a lot. I think about impact pretty much only. Like, I mean, success is often connected to money. So I think the comparison point that I go to is money is a piece of the equation, but it's a derivative. The primary, which derivatives flow from, for me, is to create a more relational world. And that's in all areas of my life. Like, I want to be free. I want freedom in my life. And that simply is gauged by me at any given time based on my ability to express myself, express love in any way. So yeah, that's what I optimize for. And I love what I do more than anything. I wouldn't even call it what I do. It just seems to be the journey that I'm on. Um, so success, success of that means more of it. And, well, maybe not even more of it, but just more pure, a more pure form of it. Another, a client of ours, somebody who we produced a podcast for, his name's Gabe Rivera. They did the Love and Freedom podcast. Killer entrepreneurs. Talks a lot. They talk a lot about the owners of Ava Loren Bride, which if there's any brides out there, you might know this because they've become a huge bridal boutique. But he and his wife, Wendy, renewed their vows. And on the wall, everybody says like, "Oh, you want more gold." And he said, "Love is like gosh, I'm gonna butcher his quote. He said, love is like gold. It doesn't grow, it purifies. So like the more pure you get with gold, it becomes practically clear in the purest form. So that's what yeah, I mean, I think that's what success is. Like, more moments where it's like, oh, bam, like it's just the right note at the right time in personal, in business, and meeting people. I think it's cool that we met recently. I'm doing these events at my house too, with the intention of meeting good people who want to create more, and zeros coming out. My podcast with Randall's growing, the team's growing, the business is growing, my relationship with my girlfriend is purifying, and that's kind of what I look at. I mean, we're also making more money, which is great. I mean, we can put that there so people know that we're not just twiddling our thumbs being like, "Oh, relationship, this and that." But that's what that's that's my definition of success.
It sounds like there's a lot around purpose, building a financial platform, but with purpose. I think it's funny, freedom. I'm not sure a single person has not said freedom. I think I really believe it takes different forms, mainly because for me, it's been a top value since I was a kid, but it's like the definition or how it feels has changed. But yeah, I love that. I'd love to talk a little bit of tactical. You have so much knowledge. Before we switch fully into kind of, the bigger picture of what you guys do at Titan, is there anything that you wish you'd known when scaling any of your businesses, past the, 6-figure or 7-figure, like whatever the milestones are? Are there things where you're like, man, if I had just known that, life would have been a little easier?
I mean, very tactical. I would say hire early, like hire for your weaknesses early. That's something that I spent a lot of time trying to be a marketer versus an entrepreneur.
Mm.
And then when I realized that I didn't want to be a marketer, I realized I probably should have hired somebody to do ads a long time ago. So that's super tactical. And then in today's age, I mean, learn how to interact with the technologies of your time in a way that is uh, conducive to what you want. So with AI does not absolve you of responsibility. It is an amplifier of the input that you put in. So when you look at the messages and the chats that you send at AI, allow it to be a reflection back onto yourself, where if you're asking the wrong questions and you're saying things, like read them back and get really, really good at interacting with it in a high quality way. It makes your life
Yeah.
so much easier. And yeah,
Don't be
spend like
afraid of technology, but don't abdicate to it either.
yeah. Yeah, like spend 15 minutes. I mean, the number of people who don't realize that ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, whatever ones that you use, have integrations into your calendar, into your Google Docs, into your Drive, into your Asana, into your Notion, and it will build out the things or can build websites for you, is just it's insane because they use it every day.
Mhm.
But the 15 minutes of research that it takes to be like, oh, well, like, can I have it build out my task list and then manage it on its own every day? It's like, yes, you can. And it would
It's
take
not
you
just a
15 minutes to do
validating
that.
therapist.
Yeah, exactly. I
And
think that's a
kind of
huge hack.
poor copywriter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And it can be a great copywriter. And it can also be a great
It
therapist.
can
But
be
you
if
gotta,
you give it
yeah.
the right prompts, to your point.
Yep.
If you learn how to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's often camps in early adoption of like, or well, there's the people who avoid it. There's the early adopters who are, but just beholden to it. And then to your point, there's like, how do I actually learn how to leverage this to leverage my skills? And I think that ties to your first point of like hire out for complementary skills, your weak spots, the biggest time drains and energy drains for you. I'm a big like hire less, pay more, right? Like I think often companies either wait too long to hire or they're just like, we hired a ton of people, we're big, yay. And you're like, okay, now you're just managing a bunch of people that are kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to manage and lead, that's a whole other podcast, whole
Yeah.
other episode.
Yeah. I mean, I can give one more last tactical thing. I know people like this stuff a lot. When you're thinking about your content and digital marketing specifically, look at your content as an extension of yourself. And I talked about like flirt, date, commit. I mean, I have resources on our site that talk about this, so you can go there and look at them. But think about content that you're creating from those points and then be willing to like go out and put it out there quickly. Like that's probably the biggest thing that I would say for early entrepreneurs early in their career. Today, you could have zero deals and you could put out a social media post, or you could write an article, or you could respond to somebody's tweets, or you could put out a flyer in your city, whatever it is. Like all these are fine examples, and get your next relationship that changes your life. And that may not be what you're expecting. It may not be you selling your next client. It might be a partner. It might be an investor. It might be what it is. And social media has essentially allowed us to do that at scale. So like we do 3 reels a day for a lot of the brands that we're doing, minimum 3 reels a day. And then we do reels for Instagram, we do reels for Facebook, we do reels for YouTube, we do reels for TikTok. And some of them we do reels on X as well. And we do written posts, and we do carousel posts through story format or through feed. We post a lot of content, and people are so worried about like, is it the perfect piece of content, or is the algorithm like, how much can I post for the perfect algorithmic thing? Remove all that BS that people tell you. Focus on it being a true, authentic reflection of what you bring at that moment, and then do it as much as you possibly can to build the brand, build the presence.
I want to talk really quickly. Titan, at its core, helps the businesses you work with to not just gain the attention, but influence, right? Like when you want to convert someone, you are influencing them to make a decision to purchase. I would love to hear your take, I guess, on or expansion on how does influence factor in to successful business building? And I guess more to the point, how does one go about gaining influence? Is it the message in the words? Is it how you say it? Is it saying it to the right people and being in the right rooms?
Mm-hmm. On the word influence, influence for your own game is manipulation and extraction, and influence for creation and expansion is leadership and relationship. So I think that's important. A lot of the time when people say influencers, we say leaders. So when
Mm.
you're looking at how do you build a community, how do you build people who you have a relationship with, and essentially do that for your business, it gets down to understanding, once again, understanding yourself and your values, what's important, what your business does. I mean, for example, when I'm looking at presenting something as kind of a newish format, but I'm like looking at like what is the problem and the desire of the person, what's the big idea to help them transition, and then taking them through like what are the beliefs they currently have, or the beliefs I currently have, and what is the connection point. So thinking through that, really putting yourself in the shoes of the person that you are trying to influence allows you to do it with integrity and allows you to understand really what they need and what they're looking for, which one gives you a competitive advantage, but two, it allows you to build something incredible that's going to genuinely help them. So yeah, it does involve being in the right rooms too. You get lucky, but be intentional about what you say and work through it as much as you possibly can with the intention of giving to the other person versus it being about you. That's the short answer to it. The way you build influence is by making it all about the other person, the person you're trying to help, the customer, not making it about you.
Like that, like genuinely trying to help somebody. So given that you help so many business leaders with that and their teams, are there common roadblocks or places where people stumble in building that component of the growth protocol?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of us are I centric. In our language, we're not trying to be selfish, but it is, I wanted to build a business so I can make more money. I want financial freedom through this. And they're not bad things in and of itself, but it does seem to be a blocker when you want to build a team, build a product, build a service, build something that extends beyond you. So that's a common blocker. And then the next one is simply just whatever limiting beliefs you have about what people think about you, they're probably not true. And really the only way to get around them is, as a joke, take a ton of psychedelics and then do a bunch of integration work, or continuously put yourself out there, put yourself out in the world, get the reps in, and it never really goes away. I mean, we all feel insecure, and constantly exposing yourself is going to bring that up in you, and you just get more comfortable with things as you get used to it.
Yeah. Something I learned, through my years is we as humans fill silence with our own shit. And so I learned that partly as someone who was quieter, and people would reflect to me later, like, oh, when I first met you, I thought you were really intimidating. I thought you were this. I thought you were that. I was always like, where does this come from? And I was like, oh, I'm kind of quiet, which leaves a gap of silence for that person to dump all their shit and insecurities into. But the other side of that coin, which I've reflected a lot on more recently as I've been pushing into discomfort, is anytime I'm like, oh my goodness, what will people think? Or, oh my goodness, I did. And I'm projecting something, a concern about what someone else might think. I'm like, oh, that's because that's what I think. Is that, I'm worried about I don't know what this person's thinking. I'm worried they're going to think that because somewhere I think or believe that. And so I love what you said about the limiting beliefs. Like, you don't get anywhere sitting in your comfort zone. It's cliche like everything else for a reason. But I really,
Yeah.
really appreciate that reflection for, from the business and leadership point of view of if you are genuinely trying to build something to help people and you are sticking to those values, then everything else is probably just noise.
You have nothing to be afraid of. You have nothing to feel shame of if you do things with integrity. And even if you do things out of integrity, it's going to bring shame, but grow, change. We all can change in any moment at any time. Just takes integration and time.
I love that. I want us to pretty much wrap up on that. I will have our couple rapid fire questions to close out. But before we get to those, if people want to learn more about you, Titan, Zero, maybe want to get involved, how can they reach you? We'll make sure it's all in the show notes, but what's the best place to find you?
Yeah, the best place to find me personally is on all platforms at Becket Fusik, and that's Becket. It's one T, Fusik at Becket Fusik. And Instagram, I don't think I have Instagram on my phone right now, but if you send me a DM there, most of the time I respond to it. Um, that's a good place for Titan. Titan, the company here, our website is titan0.com. So it's Titan, the number 0.com. We are, you can contact us through the website. You can see some of the people we work with. You can learn more about the workshops on there. You can learn more about the events. On YouTube in August and September, we're launching a new show that we've been producing called Game Zero. And on YouTube, that's at Game Zero Podcast. And that's going to be coming out soon. We're very excited about that. And then I host a podcast with a guy named Randall Carlson, and it's called The Big Picture. And that is on Spotify, Apple, and on YouTube on Randall's page, which is at the Randall Carlson.
Amazing. So quick rapid fire questions. You can pass, you can give a one-word answer, whatever works for you. Are you ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
Amazing. What's one decision that changed everything for you as a leader?
Being grateful.
What does strategy feel like when you're doing it well?
Clarity.
Is there a book, podcast, or person that really cracked something open for you?
Eric Weinstein's The Portal was a podcast that cracked open an intellectual part of myself that had ripple effects into everything.
Amazing. What's something you've said never again to in your business?
Narcissists.
All right. If you had a free weekend and zero obligations, how would you spend it?
I would work on Titan Zero right now.
Fair
I would do it at Mayakoba though. I would go to Banyan Tree and Mayakoba, and I would spend the weekend there, and I would work on the stuff, and Dara would be there and hanging out at the beach and doing her thing.
Fair enough. Becket, thank you. This has been an incredible discussion. I know we could do episodes and episodes more. I really appreciate you, and I'm grateful for the time and the insights you've provided for builders today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. A lot of fun.
Amazing.
That's a wrap for this episode of Builders, where we get real about what it actually takes to grow companies that perform without grinding you into the ground. If today's convo sparks something for you, here's what to do next. Follow the show, drop a 5-star review, and share it with someone else who's building big. Don't let it be lonely at the top. If you're ready for more clarity, more leadership freedom, and less of a duct tape and go growth vibe, let's connect. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth. Walk away with a personalized fix-it list that gives you the clarity you've been craving on what to shift now to regain traction and build momentum. For more tools, insights, and my no-fluff takes on leadership and scaling strategically, join the Builders Club, also linked in the show notes. You can also head over to leaderswhobuild.com, where you'll find all the links to Pete My Creds, see client wins, or just confirm that yes, I went to the gym today. Until next time, keep leading boldly, building smart, and living success on your terms.